Hi guys, welcome to the full camera review of the Samsung Galaxy A33. Right now I am walking in the face of sun and I am recording this video in 4K at 30 frames per second from this front camera. You guys have to be the judge for the video resolution, the voice recording quality of this mic, and the colors, contrast, saturation and the overall sharpness of this video. So make sure that you guys subscribe and drop your detailed analysis about these front camera videos in the comment section down below. This is going to be a very long and in-depth camera review, so make sure that you guys stay tuned until the end and drop your feedback like I said before. So let's go ahead and take a look at a 1080p at 30 frames per second front camera video now. Okay, this one now is a 1080p at 30 frames per second from the front camera of the Samsung Galaxy A33. And I'll just walk once again. The stability will be a little better in this mode because it's a low resolution and stability often works better in the low resolution modes on these phones. This phone does not have a 60 fps mode for the front camera, which is very unfortunate. I was expecting that option in this phone because it shares its chipset with the Samsung Galaxy A53 and that phone has front 60 frames per second video recording mode. You guys once again have to be the judge for the voice recording quality and the other elements involved in making a front camera video good enough. Make sure that you drop your feedback and once again make sure to subscribe as well. Let's go ahead and check out other parts of this camera review now. Let's take a look at the camera hardware. The main camera of the Galaxy A33 is a 48 megapixel sensor. Other camera details including the front camera are on your screen. This phone uses the image processing of the Samsung Exynos 1280 chipset. The camera app of this phone is pretty basic. It's got all the features that you get in a Samsung One UI camera app. I'll tell you where this phone lacks. First of all, this phone doesn't have a high resolution camera mode for the selfies because of the inferior front camera sensor. This phone cannot record 1080p at 60 fps videos from its front camera, and it cannot record 4K at 30 frames per second ultra-wide videos either. It can record ultra-wide videos only in the 1080p at 30 frames per second mode. Other features of this camera app are quite similar to other A series smartphones. Take a look at the rear camera ultra-wide video. Now the saturation in the video is high, the color of the sky however is not very good, and this will remain the same in all of these video samples. Stabilization in this low resolution mode is good. This is a normal 1080p at 30 frames per second video. Stabilization is good once again, while the colors remain the same as they were in the ultra-wide video. I would have loved a slightly bluish sky. And this is a 60 fps video, horrible stabilization, as if this video mode is not made for this phone. And lastly, here is the 4K at 30 frames per second video. Once again, a horrible stabilization. There isn't any OIS or even the electronic image stabilization working in this mode. Samsung should fix the stabilization issues on these new Galaxy A devices as soon as possible. Okay, let's take a look at an ultra wide image first of all. This one has high saturation and details as expected are not high since this is a low res ultra wide image. Dynamic range is just fine. I am not finding very dark shadows and highlights are not completely blown off. This one now is a normal image. Saturation is high in this one too, but this time details are much better. Skin tone is fine, but it has made that red color of my shirt look extra red. Overall, I am liking the colors of this image. If you are a fan of highly saturated images, you are probably going to like this camera. I do find this image slightly sharper than it's supposed to be. Here, this one is a 48 megapixels image. There is a little bit of control over the saturation this time. The image has a slightly different color tone than the previous one, but it has high details and it doesn't look over sharpened when we zoom in. I'll show you these images side by side in a while. The portrait image, good image with very high details, overall cool color tone with my skin tone being so close to reality, I would call it natural. I am liking the fact that this image is not pale and it's more on the cooler side with very good vibrance. Here's your look at all these images side by side now. I think there is a little bit of inconsistency between the color tone here. The ultra wide image has darker shadows compared to all other images. The normal image has good exposure and elements look brighter on that. Shadows get darker once again in the high res image and it looks a bit underexposed. The portrait image has an entirely different look. Mainly the cool color tone and that vibrance on my face, which isn't the case with the other three images. Here is a normal broad daylight image on your screen. Keep your eyes on the grass and also on the sky because I'm about to show you the same image in the high res mode. This one now is a high res image. Details are much high in this one and this image is good enough to crop it into. Here is another normal image. Once again, the elements are quite visible in this image. Saturation is high as there is a slight pinkish tone visible on the grass and also on those mud patches on the ground. The same image in the high res mode has got high details and takes a step back in terms of saturation. Here are the same images side by side. You can spot the differences that I was just talking about. Color of the grass looks much better in the normal mode. Shadows in the normal mode appear darker, but they look better with that darker look. Details will always remain high in the high res mode. Here is another set of images. First, an ultra wide image. I would want you to keep your eyes on the color tone of the road and the sky. Note down the amount of details and the sharpness on the buildings. This is the same image in the normal mode. The saturation gets high again. What I have concluded is that the Galaxy A33 keeps the saturation very high in the broad daylight images. I have taken all these same images on the Galaxy A53 as well, and the saturation of the A33 is higher than that of the A53 as well. Too much of saturation often makes the images look unrealistic, but there are users who want this kind of look. The same image in the high res mode, you will note down a significant change in the overall color tone because the saturation being low ends up giving these images a warmer look. Here is a 3x image taken through the digital zoom of the Galaxy A33, and now this one is a 10x image. The digital zoom is not very practical. And now here are all the images side by side. You can see that the ultra wide image has the warmest color tone with a yellowish or greenish tint. The normal image has the highest saturation but also has the best look among all these. The high res image lacks a good amount of saturation. Check the color of the sky too, which is different in all these images. Dynamic range is the best in the ultra wide image. Details are the best in the high res image. Another image with the same kind of color tone, and this one is the same image in the high res mode. And now both these images side by side, the differences once again remain the same. These are not very surprising results. These were kinda expected from this phone. I'll show you some indoor, ultra wide, normal and high res images too, so you can get a better idea of how these cameras work under different lighting conditions. These results are not too bad. I think these are acceptable and workable images. Galaxy A33's camera is definitely not as powerful as that of the Galaxy A53, but it still performs its job nicely. I will now show you some more outdoor and indoor images in different lighting conditions. Details of all these images will appear on your screen. I would want you guys to observe these images with your full attention and drop your detailed analysis in the comment section. I find all these images pretty good. Keep in mind that the saturation is very high in these images, and these images may impress some of you because right now you are looking at the photos taken on one phone. You will only be able to tell if these are better after comparing these images to another device of the same league. I have already taken these images on the Galaxy A53 like I told you, and a full in-depth comparison between the A33 and A53 will come out on the channel tomorrow. But as far as this phone's individual camera performance in its own current capacity is concerned, I would refrain from calling it bad. Here are some macro images on the screen. Macro camera is doing what a macro camera does. Not bad result. Night mode on these new Samsung mid-range devices has improved. It's not as gimmicky as it used to be back in the day. There is a clear difference between the normal low light and the night mode images, with the night mode images having a lot less noise and more clarity with better details. Let me know, what do you guys think of the night mode now? Do you also find it better than the previous Galaxy A phones, especially if you have the Galaxy A32? Can you please tell me if this night mode is better than that of the Galaxy A32's night mode? And lastly, we have the selfies here. I like the colors in the selfies. The selfies are not too much saturated like the previous camera images. Details in the selfies are good. Details are in fact higher in the normal mode selfies compared to the portrait selfies. Skin tone is natural, or you may call it original. It's very close to the real look. Edge detection is fine. I am not finding any issues there. At some instances, the selfies do look more polished than they should be. In such instances, the soft look on the face takes away the details which some users may not like. But as I always say, selfies are a subjective choice, and I believe everyone has a different taste for the color tone and overall look of the selfies. Some people like too much beautified selfies, and some people like to keep the selfies very real and close to the original look of the face. So I would love to hear you out regarding the selfies of this phone. Do you like these, or do you prefer something else? And with this we reach the conclusion. Galaxy A33's camera as long as we are looking at its images only, is very nice. I am not going to go into the value for money aspect of this phone because I personally do not expect a value for money device from Samsung. But as long as the phone is concerned, I think Samsung has made massive improvements compared to the Galaxy A32. The A33 is actually the first Galaxy A30 series device with a slightly better camera. Now surprisingly, the image processing on the Galaxy A33 and the A53 is same because of the same chipset, and a comparison between these two devices will be absolutely awesome. Like I told you, I have already started working on that, and that will be coming out on the channel by tomorrow. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. Make sure that you drop your own thoughts about this camera review and my video in the comment section below. Subscribe and like if you haven't already done that. I will sign off and see you all in the next one.